did do. Checking with you. Kiwi's Road. You know, today went metal detecting. A very nice spot. And it was interesting. I'm probably just going to repeat this, because I got to see if this is even going on. So please bear with me. I had issues with the internet today. Boy, I tell you what. As much as we try to simplify our lives, we end up making them worse. That's all right. Let's see. Of course, it's just us. And let's see, how's the sound? Oh yeah, I forget. It actually is loud, so anyway. Let me double check that right there. Hold on now. There we go. Oh, like that ranch right there. So, wife went to a yard sale. Got that for me. And dog. All right, good. Cool. All right. So, fortunately, the echo. Understand there is an echo. That's just how it is. An echo. But today, today I was down at the Snake River. You know, it's only because of my wife. She's like, just go put Kiwi down and go metal detecting. And so I did. So I'm down there at the Snake River, and I'm on the phone with my twin sister from Massachusetts, and USS Constitution, a 3-mast frigate that's harbored over there at Boston, Mass. I was born in Charlton. Anyway, so you know, I was standing out there. I'm talking to my sister on video chat, and I'm bringing her along this journey, discussing history and how if you're looking up the river, you can see where the current freeway is, and then you can see where the old road was, and then you can see where just the trails were, the game trails and stuff. And I think looking in this chase that you gotta kind of look at Forrest's life kind of like that, you know. And so this is up from people from last night. You know, we were having a conversation about the perspective for Project X, which is kind of hard to read, but you know, I take pictures and stuff of this anyway. So anyway, Project X is shadow casting. When I put shadow casting, the wife said bits and pieces of Forrest, Fenn, and combined perspective. His dreams, shadow casting his dreams. And to me, it's a theory And if you've heard of the prayer labyrinth, it'll make sense. But I had taken a picture of this because I like screenshot everything. I've been photo cataloging, photo journeying this thrill of the chase since I first started, and so I take pictures of everything, and it's just these ideas that may elude me or others that can be seen, through pictures and stuff. Our ideas, our collective thoughts. In this case, about Forrest Fenn. The Kiwi effect. So I'm going to erase this because, my Forrest Fenn, we'll come back to this if you guys want, if anybody even cares, whoever's even watching, that one person. If that's not me and it's not you, then whoever it is, thank you for taking the time to just listen to a person ramble about nothing and about everything, which makes sense when you look at the Forrest Fenn chase, because if Forrest is telling us to use our imagination, then nothing is impossible. So, doing a project like this where I can get perspective of a bunch of people just to narrow down a state that kind of gives people a better starting point for their search for truth, then why not? It's an idea that can be shared and seeded with other people so that, it will open up minds, I hope, and eyes to the logic and emotion that is connected with Forrest Fenn in his entire lifeline through my perspective and my thoughts combined with your guys' perspective and thoughts. So thank you again for your perspective, because it is uniquely yours alone. And to have a few simple questions answered with Project X about, what state you are searching, what single story. So for me, Montana is where it ends up. It ends up in Montana, but it's Wyoming, Montana. It's combined. It's not singled down to any specific states, but the storyline, the poem line, there's no specific state, but where X marks the spot is, a specific state, which is what state is a secret? Montana, for me. Storyline or story of Forrest, simplified down to his 3 books, along with through this thrill of the chase, Once Upon a While, Too Far to Walk, is Flywater. And keeping it simple, it's just my key word through this whole thing has been reverence. How he uses reverence when he explains certain places, certain people, certain times in his life. Again, so that makes it my connection. What type of connection do I have? Do I have more of an emotional connection that connects Forrest to my specific search state, or is it more logical and rational that people choose other states? So Colorado and whatnot. You know what? Here we go. So, New Mexico, Montana, Wyoming. So, logic. But for me, it's more emotional along the 4th part of this Project X. fourth part of the Project X is his time frame in life. Through his lifeline, from when he was born, you know, until he transitions, you know, takes the journey that everybody must take alone, as so eloquently put by so many others. I mean, it's for me. So it's more emotional, and it's more his childhood. So if I'm leaning towards the emotional, logically it points me towards Montana. For me, in my perspective, others it whatever. Middle ages, military after, when he's down there in New Mexico. Logically, he's just sitting there with his family that he's now created beyond his imagination that he ever knew possible. That connection that he has emotionally with his family. So there's time frames that put you on a timeline of Forrest Fenn that he's been within certain areas. And of course, it's narrowed down. So Project X, using the Kiwi effect, and the Kiwi effect, I said, is based off of kind of like the prayer labyrinth, but with a little, as some people would say, Fennism, or Fenn language, or how about James language? And that's a good one. Anyway, Kiwi sits there, so his perspective is he thinks he's an eagle. Forrest, he thinks he's a maverick. So I'm just kind of like everything else. The prayer labyrinth can be applied to everybody. I think, again, my perspective is just a method, a logical method that I'm applying to narrow down a search state. And I'll show you real quick about, so think about this. Now, if you look up a prayer labyrinth is, man, I was out all day metal detecting today. Carrying around all that weight today. It was only 20 pounds. But hey, it was sitting there chafing my neck, and it's like, she's like, fuzz, fuzz. So I'm like really dehydrated because I forgot to bring more water than I should have. So if you look at Forrest has his stories, okay? He has his birth, his childhood, his teens. We'll put military career, because that's what, anywhere between 15 and 20, don't do the same thing, right? But 20 years or whatever, give or take, I'm not really concerned. You can add on another ring for especially New Mexicoers. I would say because family is right here. Family is always right here. Family is always the center. So it's not really fair to put like family here. So we'll put that. I think my perspective of Forrest is he was in New Mexico to recover from his near-death experiences and just the awakenings that he's had, by, that Philadelphia experiment. Thanks for your time, for jumping on it. Have any questions, feel free going over. Kiwi effect is an idea I have in simplifying to get down to a search state by figuring out which state is a secret instead of just a secret location within all these states. Project X, shadow casting, and a fishing story. So this is about Forrest and fishing for me, our perspective. But shadow casting, getting everybody else's ideas and inputs on why they think their state holds a secret spot. I think it'll just help kind of narrow it down. But I was going over now how the prayer labyrinth is kind of the Kiwi effect. How the center of the prayer labyrinth, you walk in, and I mean you start walking in, further out, in and out, and then in, and then you're just pretty much going back and forth, right? If you look it up, I did it with some friends of mine, and it's about looking at whatever you're focused on, and then looking at the world around you. So in this case, if I use my Kiwi effect, I can instead of doing the Fenn, I can put either the chest there, his memories, I can put myself there. It's the imagination to try to be that stone. So since I can't be that stone, my next step is to be the shadow. And we're all following Forrest as a shadow through the places that he's been. And so we all have our own perspective and perception of these areas where Forrest has been. And so if there's more people that are logically driven, to certain states, or, emotionally driven to other states, it makes you wonder what the whole collective perspective is of Forrest. So in the prayer labyrinth, you have Forrest, you have his lifeline, and then you have his world around him, these states. And so you would have to think that throughout his entire lifeline, he was always dreaming about something. He was always going back to these places. He was always he was always there. He could feel it and smell it, and yeah. And this is, don't ask where I'm going with this. I gotta read this. Go back to the shadow casting bits and pieces. So that's what this was. That's why I was explaining was what the Kiwi effect was. It's just applying the prayer labyrinth to look at this. The whole thing about Project X is to find out which state is secret, right? So we got this. I should take a picture of that, but I can screenshot it from there. Not that you can really read it. That's all right. That's all right. So Project X, let's see. There's a way to get a better perspective of Forrest through his stories and his life, through the states that he's been to help narrow down a secret state by the collective perspective, because that's the only way to really know Forrest, you know what I mean? So Project X, I think, is going to be interesting for me, and I don't even know how far it'll go, but there's already dialogue with people out there about what state, why, what story, what single story, logic or emotion, and then what time frame in his life. But so how do I work on Project X? It's opening dialogue. Thank you. It makes it easy for me to write my entire thought almost out in a way that I can see and understand. So, like, the prayer labyrinth being applied to this with the Kiwi effect, I've applied it to myself in my own personal life, and it's opened my mind quite a bit. Because I look at myself from the collected perspective of people through all that I know. And so it really helps me shape my life personally to be a better person by the things I think and say and do. So, I think that's part of what Forrest is teaching in this whole search is those three basic aspects of everything. Just do the positive thing. But how do I get the information for Project X from you guys, your perspective, because your guys' perspective is unique. I want to find a secret state because again, this is my perspective to kind of share, and it's not that I'm looking for the chest, because I just want people to see if there's to keep their mind open and see if there's something else out there besides something, which makes no sense, but that's quite all right. Project X and keep that grass. All right, so I'm on a life event. We'll get rid of this. So this was all part of what I've shared already with on YouTube is my end location for the thrill of the chase, where I plan to go look, but not necessarily to find something, but to leave something. I'm gonna go and look, because this place, it does have that flair for being a blaze, so to speak. Because I don't expect to find anything there, but I do expect to find people, and you can always count to find somebody, because everybody's out there and they all have different perspectives. That's my goal with Project X. How do we share that perspective? And so it's over there. Walmart halts at the junction, and so what we're doing right here is this next step. Actually, I'll leave that because that's exactly what I want. This next step is shadow casting bits and pieces. If this is the focus now, and we got Forrest in the stories, blah, 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 blah. In order for me to fulfill Project X of state, story, logic and emotion, and time period. This is all like you have to know who Forrest is to know what the poem is, I think. But to keep it simple, to find information about what state, because there's only obviously 4 states, right? So that's one way. And we'll just give that a circle for 4, because I don't want to sit there and do 4 circles. But so then you have another stone of Forrest, which is his stories and his life. But only the stories that are, and you gotta exclude all that you know, and you have to start basic. All we have is Forrest. We know we have a poem. We have a map, because he says you need a map. His book, so you know you have a book. And we get in 4 states. So for the states, it's actually four lines of information, right? You got Colorado, Montana, New Mexico. So that's 4 lines of information. Now his stories, what? How many is in what's one? Too Far to Walk. How many stories? Right? Exactly. Which is pretty good. So I mean, that gives 25%. You can't argue 104. And all you gotta do is go to one state, just once, anywhere. So 49. So Too Far to Walk is 49. Right? 49. How many is in TTOC? How many stories are in Once Upon a While? Jeez Louise. Say, well, we go with what? Maybe 40 stories in TTOC. We'll just do that. So like what? That's 80. We'll do another 40. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 100. So we'll just do 120. So that's 120 lines of information off of the stories if we simplify it just down to the book, poem, and the map, right? Okay. Right? Or 120 times, right? So the poem, which is kind of nice, that's 24. So 24 lines. Don't ask me where I'm going with this. That's what? 120, 124, 128, 129. Oh, like 130. That's 130 different perspectives of Forrest right there. Which, that's all I need to pick a state. But it makes it hard to find out which state would be a better state than another because of logic and emotion, and it's only 130 perspectives in mine. But if I can get everybody else's perspective, so this is the most interesting part of this is, so there's what, we'll just do an even number of 200 different perspectives of Forrest on a stage. Now here's the interesting part. I want to see what's behind the curtains, in a sense. I want to see I want to see 300,000 perspectives on Project X, on their state, their story, their connection, and their time period. Because to narrow down the secret, I gotta know which state. And in order to know which state, 300 different perspectives is kind of interesting to see, which state will have the most dots in it. You know what I mean? Regardless if it's logic or emotion or both. It'd be interesting to see, what everybody else's perspective is, besides people sharing their own perspective. Project X is a different look at it, I think, at this whole search. Because I think if you can get more perspective on something, it opens up imagination even more, because that's just new experiences that you've never known unless it was shared. And so for me to get a better perspective of Forrest, to find even remotely a secret place for us, the Madison, place we've already shared, is to find out which state. So once I can find out what state, then I know what time period, is to pay attention to logically and emotionally. And then from there, I can start moving in to where he's kind of just, you know, started really opening up his heart and mind, I think. So, yeah. Kiwi's Road and Project X. So each one of us are shadows to Forrest through this thrill of the chase. To simplify which state to start, I'm applying the Kiwi effect to narrow down the center, but yet also everybody else on stage to reverse engineer it back to which one would be more logical and emotionally correct for a state to start. So Project X, shadow casting. we're a fishing adventure following Forrest. I like plates in fly water that he's made. See those plates and see what pictures are painted on there, or at least the fish. And because to me, I think it's just important. And so it's easier, like I said, to follow somebody to at least go fishing where they've been. And now I can go to these other places, but for me, in my perspective, with this whole thing, by watching, see, I've been watching and listening to people out there, and kind of thinking, if I was to find a place following somebody's shadow, using everybody else's perspective of them, of that person, it's just kind of helped narrow it down for me. This was, you know, when I read the books, and I read first home, and then I just, I mean, I was just already high as I was going through it from the very get. You know, it's just when I first opened this, it was duly noted for a right time. You know, and so I think everybody who's opened up the thrill of the chase is seeking truth in something. You know, either about themselves, others, or about even just a chest being out there. Truth about Forrest, truth about the cosmos, you know, truth about what's what else is out there, impossible or possible, the metaphysical and the physical, um, your mind, body, and soul, just how to be, you know, a good person. These are all skills that people out there have that can be shared through sharing their perspective. And so I think Project X is a good way to get not only information on Forrest and information on a state to at least, you know, pass along to other sources. You're not passing on to me where to start. You're passing on to other people, you know. You're sharing your state. You're sharing that one story that Forrest told of, you know, why did that connect you? That one story connected you to your state. You know what I mean? And there was a logical reason or an emotional reason, and that story plays on his lifeline. I may be crazy, but say much about Colorado. So anyway, what do you guys think, or at least you Marty? What do you think of Project X? So there was somebody else that was had made a comment on a video yesterday, and they were giving me you know, their state and some information, and it's like, you'd be surprised how many people share a perspective, even just a little bit, but it's all still shared, and it's like connecting the dots in a way to kind of narrow it down to something one of four states. You know what I mean? So I mean, would you like to be a part of that? I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, would people not? Would they? I mean, what's your state? You know, what's your one story? Because I'm writing it down. Let's see. I've already, you know, this is one of a few notebooks. It says Project X, shadow casting bits and pieces of the dream i.e., Forrest's thoughts, his times and places, his dreams and reality, his heaven on earth. Is how I like to say it. When he reverence in those thoughts, in those moments when they come, just barreling in on him. He loves it when they do that, especially when they come barreling in on fishing. I think, but that's just me. But I mean, there's a yeah. I'm gonna keep a notebook and follow along with, like I said, the state that people pick. Because I'm gonna do a spreadsheet. I think, so I can put people's names on there and put, um, their state, the story in book title, so that it's easy for people to reference, and then the connection. So don't you think Project X would tend to point to the state Forrest has the most talked about? Okay, so what state do you think Forrest most talked about? People think New Mexico is most talked about. Some people, well, I guess not, since he's sitting there saying people are overlooking New Mexico now, but if I wanted to pass information on, I think the easiest and simplest way to pass that information is to keep it simple. And if you constantly talk about a state more than other states, you have to have a balance. There's got to be a balance, because you can't have all in and all out. There's no beginning without an end. There's no end without a beginning. So yeah, people's perceptions though can be different than we think. Some people will think something simple, but some people will think it's extremely hard. So it's like saying so you're gonna go with Wyoming. So do you mind if I mark you down for Wyoming here? You'll be number 2 on this list. Because I already got a number 1. Connection, and then time period. Actually, you would have to be number 3, because I would actually be number 1. But then I could do Kiwi as number 1, but Kiwi could be 0 because he can't really have a thought. I can't share it, but he's flying over this stuff. You know what I mean? What state would you be? Would you be Wyoming or New Mexico? What state would you, or what story? Which one would be your number 1 story? Montana. Mine's Flywater. So that's the TTOTC. Mine's more emotional than it is logic, so I'll put the E before the L. And so mine's the childhood. And so what's interesting about this method and theory, so Project X is collecting the perspective of the whole collective, so I can find the best direction to share with people, which way they can, they have a 1 in 4 chance of finding a pretty cool state to go visit. If not, you still got another 3/4 of a chance of finding something in somewhere else. I mean, that's pretty good odds, right? 1 in 4. You can't go wrong with that. I mean, everybody's looking for the 1 in 1. Why not just back it off a little bit? Just come out of that maze a little bit. Just kind of go for the 1 in 4. And it's not for me. It's for everybody else to have like a good starting point, because people are sharing their thoughts. So when we go to his, what state is a secret state? So I need to write that down right here. Project X. What state is a secret state? And I'm gonna. This is kind of interesting that I'm now pondering in this idea. State. Because if you got so many dots, 3,000 plus people over the top of this, you have to. That's a lot of information. I dropped my cap. That's a lot of information to try to fit in. You know what I mean? And so, because everybody's got their thoughts and ideas. Wow, why is it warm waters here instead of warm waters there? And why is this poem work here or not work there? So, again, we back it out to the states coming out of here, and it starts taking an effect of, again, that labyrinth. Look at all them perspectives going bye-bye. But this is so when you have, see, I'm still waiting for your state and your storyline there, Marty. You don't have to give it up, because here's the best thing about this whole thing about Project X. It don't matter what state you pick or don't pick, because nobody knows your spot that you have in your mind. It's only yours and yours alone. And that goes for everybody, every searcher. And that's something I've been contemplating through this entire process, is like, it's not that I want people to come along this journey. I want to meet people there, because it's not about finding the chest, it's about finding people. Digress. So when you give out a state, you give out a storyline, and you give out the connection, and you give out his time period, it's still so far off that everybody's missing by an inch. Because you're the one that's down below an inch. You know exactly where it is in your mind. And so I think Project X is a non-biased way to share as much information, in a sense, about either a certain individual or other individuals, everybody else, behind the stage, of course, in the thrill of the chase. So, states, of course I had to go Montana, right? And then there's, for me, I like fly water. So for me, I think when he's hinting at Montana, for me it's fly water. People go through life, again, these are just my thoughts and my perspective, but people go through life, I go through life with logic thinking and emotional thinking. And for me, what makes you think he's hinting at Montana? When I want to be someplace, the way I think and talk about someplace, if I open my eyes, it almost feels like you can see that place. Now, I can't literally see, whatever in front of me, whatever that happy place is, that happy thought, happy person, happy thing, whatever it is, that some people can just really here's a cheeseburger, let me taste it. You know what I mean? It's that good of a memory. And because it's that good of a memory, when Forrest sits there and talks in Flywater, he's sitting there saying, those reverential spirits that come flooding in, those thoughts that come in. And it's just like, he's trying to take you. He's trying to take me down a journey with him. Is what it is the feeling that I'm going, and by doing that, I'm his shadow. You know, if I can't. It's I can be, beside him, but I don't want to be beside him. I don't want to see what's in front. I want to see everything from a different perspective, a higher perspective, and so I think the way he talks in Flywater, it's a strong emotional connection with words that it makes me feel that, hey, if I want to find peace in a stressful moment like this, when I, maybe ding my mirror or something, I can just close my eyes and just be out there fishing. Because that's no worries in the world. That's in my shadow mind of following Forrest. That's where we follow along in Montana. But I mean, my war for me. I mean, that kind of plays in more than one, I think, area. Obviously, because I think my war for me is the first stanza. Anyhow, in order to know somebody, you have to know the basics. The here's the who, what, when, where, and why, condensed down into 3 novels. 3 memoirs or whatever. 3, storylines that have specific points of interest on Force's lifeline. Bless you. So that's Stormy. He's I call him Fitty Kitty. Bless you. And is most important. Yes. When through the books, when he's talking about contentment, I feel, again, when he talk, that's why I put those kind of mashups. That's the storyline that I've followed along Force through this whole journey is that state, but there's so many other stories that kind of, so like Golden Moor, or is it Love in Yellowstone or something like that? I mean, you can put that on here, I think it's Love in Yellowstone, In Love with Yellowstone. So I was doing Bless You, New Mexico, as my war for me. But this is just to kind of show. So somebody might have In Love with Yellowstone as their number 1 story with a state. Or they might have My War for Me as their 1 story for a state. So it would go around the New Mexico stone in Project X. So in Project X, we now have our states. Cody, what's the is it Buffalo Cowboy or something like that for Cody, for Wyoming. I probably should look up the title name, but as long as people know what I'm talking about, and if they don't know what I'm talking about, maybe they can read the books or something. And I'd be more than happy to explain, because I love talking. I love hearing myself talk. I don't know why, but I sound terrible. So I don't love hearing myself talk. It actually sucks. My wife says I never shut up. It's very understandable, because you guys are probably saying the same thing. You ain't shutting up yet. Won't even look down. All right, I'm looking down. Yellowstone, and then geothermal activity. It looks like a war zone with the smoke, And again, see, that's what I love. That's the whole point of Project X, is to get that perspective from individuals who have either have or have not. I mean, just because when you read a story, you imagine your own, you create your own universe surrounding each of these stories. And when you go boots on the ground, it changes that perspective. And it's just, I think it's fascinating and interesting because it makes it, um, see, to me, it's a love story, but it just makes it more interesting to see what people think, why the states and the things that they see, if you're looking at that's something that's either in your mind or something that you've experienced in one way, shape, or form, or just by just imagining it. So so next time somebody looks at that, they'll be like, hey, that's actually kind of cool. That's what it looks like, i.e. from what you've seen either on movies or at the geothermal pits. It's people have interesting perspectives to share about the world around us with their own personal experiences, which I think Project X can help build a better understanding of Forrest Fenn and the life around him and us, to make it all work, to even just, figuring out which state is the secret state to him, which state is the one that he fell so in love with, Oh, cowboy. Because when you look at this, to narrow it down to that secret state, you got to take that stone out of Forrest, and you're not going to put that stone either in here or take this and put it in here. And it'll be interesting to see the perspectives people share that would make you wonder which stone is the more plausible way of looking at this, going in and out. See, Project X, shadow casting. Oh, that's what I was saying. Was how do we find what state is a secret state? Is the one that I think has the most. It's a 1.25 shot, right? For it being the one with the most dots. I mean, you can sit there and ask other people, right? And you can sit there and have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20 in that one. Who knows in that one? Who knows in the other? And you've gone over the other perspectives of Forrest through his books, poem, map, and the state. You can throw on their scrapbooks too, but that's compounding the problem. And I'm purposely kind of, in a way, compounding the problem because it's making it simpler for me to have a better understanding of people and why they're searching their areas, to make it more understandable why would Forrest pick his state. You know what I mean? And so, story count. It'd be interesting to see, because there's over 300,000 people or so that's looking in this Forrest Fenn thing. So that'd be interesting. I think. Sorry for getting loud. My apology. It'd be interesting, I think, to see if Project X can at least give somebody a good starting point. And if the chest is ever found, I wonder if it would relate to everybody combining their perspective in a way that gave that person that edge, I think, to find it in the state. And I'm not greedy, and I understand people want it for themselves, and yeah, it'd be nice to find it myself, but logically, I'm not going to find it. Again, I miss by an inch, I miss by a mile. We all do. Emotionally, yeah, that'd be freaking fantastic. I would hope anybody could find it, or anybody could use it. But
I don't need to beat myself up over it and have and worry and think and have fear and all this negative stuff related to the chase, and just be like, hey, here's a place for you to start. In a sense, it's the that's why it's getting compounded. It's just to see what state everybody else would think, and I mean, why not? Can you imagine having a list of over 300,000 people, narrowing down a good state to start looking, and it's just by stories, time frame, and you know, yes, stories, time frame, and connection. Because one of these stones is gonna encroach more onto another than another. You know what I mean? Because like my war for me is, like you said, for you, Yellowstone kind of pops into it. So they just merge. You know what I mean? They'll merge together, but one will be outweighing more than another. I think. I don't think it'll be even across the board at all. Because if you're just making it simple to logic or emotional connection based off of one story that would have been the one that says, you know what, I think it's in this state, and I think Project X will be fun for people to just have something. It's an icebreaker. Is really what all this Forrest Fenn thing is for me is an icebreaker. It's that's where I've moved on in the whole stage process of this storyline. So now it's interesting to see because it'll just be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to gain that perspective. Well, I hope it does help somebody. We all do. We all hope it helps somebody else, and we all have a story that we want to share too. You want to share why that story connected you to your search state, and why why the books or Forrest or the people you've met have sat there and made an impact on your life, where somebody or something has changed you to be a better person in one way, shape, or form, and the things that we each say, do, and think. And so, um, for some, it's stories from others or stories of their own, and how their universes just kind of collide and just make things kind of go on. All right, later. We'll see you in the other rooms there, Marty. Right? But yeah, brainstorming, simplifying, Project X, how to meet people to go fishing with an icebreaker called Forrest Fenn. It'll be interesting. But 12:30, and yeah, I got some information to be getting written down. And leave a comment. Oh, please, whoever, whenever, however, Project X, leave a comment. Your state, your story that connects you. The Forrest Fenn story through his 3 books that connects you to your state. The connection that it made, either emotional or logical, and a time period that you think reflects Forrest's secret state. For like me, it was childhood. So, yeah, let's see where this thing goes, Project X, and I'm gonna keep throwing it out there. I'm gonna keep this thing kind of going, but I need content and feedback and bouncing back and forth and stuff. I still have to figure that out. Wife says I have a bullshit button that I can use, so we'll have to figure out how that works.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me! That's 3 gallons of bullshit in a 2-gallon bucket!
It'll be interesting to see what Kiwi says. Anyway, 12:30. Thanks for hanging out, and yeah, brainstorming Project X. Let's see if we can't get people to start leaving a comment with answering those 4 things, and let's see where this kind of goes. It'll be interesting. So, anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being here, and We'll see you on the flip side. On the other end, around the stormy shores. Once more into the great abyss.